Picture this. Two old friends lock eyes across a busy subway platform, pushing through people until they're standing face to face. They haven't seen each other in years, and the chemistry is palpable. So what now? Who are they, and what happens next? So begins Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, the best-selling novel from Gabrielle Zevin. It is a sweeping love story unlike anything you've ever read before. It's true. It's now set for a screen adaptation, and the author, Gabrielle Zevin, is here with more. Great to have you in studio. I really loved this book.
Oh, thank you for having me, Anne-Marie.
Okay, so Sam and Sadie are the heartbeat of this entire story. Set this one up for us without any spoilers. So you don't want to spoil any of it. It's so good.
It's funny, I've been describing the book for 2 years. I think I've gone to like 50 cities or something like that, and I still find it hard to synopsize. I tell people it's about love, art, video games, and time, which is, of course, terribly vague. But really, I think it's about these two people who they spend 30 years together. They play video games when they're young, and then they make video games. And I think it's about the impossible dilemma that their relationship poses for them. What would you do if the closest person to you in your life wasn't any of the usual suspects? It wasn't your colleague or it wasn't your like wife or your child, but it was your colleague or your friend.
Yeah, and the intimacy that they have without being intimate in the traditional sense is fascinating.
Right, it's a marriage of the mind, if not the body.
Yeah, it's such a unique way to tell a story. And I should say to people, I held off on reading this book because I was like, I'm not a gamer, I don't get video games. But you don't have to be a gamer to understand this story. And without giving too much away, at one point, you tell part of this story through a video game, which I thought was brilliant and creative. And I loved like reading and rereading the passage. Where did that idea come from?
I mean, I think in a way the novel is really a classic novel, you know, and so there are, and yet, you know, the kind of subject of the novel feels new to people. It's funny, the thing you said before, I haven't met a single person who, when they talk about the book, don't kind of feel the need to state their relationship to video games before they describe the book. Like, I've played many video games in my life. I have never played a video game in my life. And I don't know that people always feel the need to do that when they're reading, say, like a novel about World War II. I was never a soldier. I was never in a war, this kind of thing, you know. But, you know, for me, I think what's really interesting is the first generation of people to play video games as children are now in their 40s and 50s. And I wondered, how would that change your point of view on things, on literature, on life, on dying, on all of those things?
When you talked about how it's sort of a classic story, the title, of course, Tomorrow and Tomorrow is a quote from Macbeth.
It is.
It is a love story, and it almost feels Shakespearean, if I can say that, in like the epic highs and lows and the drama of these two. Fans of this book, however, have become very creative, and they've been inspired to make things themselves, which must be very cool for an author. They've made cover art for the video game that your characters create in the book, which, interestingly, this is how I imagine that. What's it like for you to see it take hold in this way?
Oh, it's funny because that was something a woman brought to me in a signing line, and it was the most elaborate and complicated series of like objects from the book, you know? And I think it's an amazing compliment to me when people love something so much they want to make it somehow real in the world. You know, I can't imagine anything more flattering as an author. And also, I think one wants to make art that inspires people to make more art.
I love that. Listen, can I ask you really quickly, speaking of art, about the cover? Because one of the most unique things about this book is this cover. It is different than anything else you see on store shelves.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I think when people first saw the cover, they had strong reactions to it. And sometimes when something is new, people will say, I don't like that, you know, and then it, you know, has done really well. So it's become kind of quite iconic. I had the experience of never feeling, when I had seen, you know, it's my 10th novel. With the 9 other books, I never really felt like, even though some of the jackets are very good, that I was looking at something that I might hang on my wall that, in a sense, looked like me, you know?
Interesting.
But with this book, it almost felt more like looking at a mirror. It felt really representative of of exactly what I thought was inside the book, you know? And you can't always control that.
I love that. And it has a very 90s feel. There's Tamagotchi and all kinds of 90s references, the magic eye, which I really love.
Although just as much in the 2000s, too.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true. And you talk about that time in history when technology was emerging and how they're in the exact sweet spot of doing what they do.
I didn't really know I had a novel until I realized that what I had was 2 coming-of-age stories. The first was like the coming-of-age of an artist story, Künstlerroman. It's kind of early for German for me. I'm still on LA time. But a Kunstroman, but also the coming of age of an entire industry. So I realized that the entire history of video games was contained within my lifetime, you know? And so it was a really interesting subject and time to write about.
I brought in my own copy of this because it's full of my notes, and I really loved reading the book. So
I said we're going to cover every single note in the next 3 minutes.
We don't have enough time. Speaking of time, we got to go. The book, however, is called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. It's also now newly available in paperback. We're going to want to grab it for your summer reads.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.